what we're surmising here is that there is more to this conflict and the perpetuation of the conflict than is made readily available to people through the mainstream media. And we're very grateful for the opportunity here on TNT Radio to be able to reveal some of the truths behind the scenes, as Robert said there. And, well, in terms of ulterior motives, if we can put it that way, war is extraordinarily profitable. And you don't need to take my word for that. As you said, Andrew, at the beginning, the much lauded Major General Smedley Butler said in 1935 in his book, War is a Racket, that the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. And generally speaking, the lost lives are not from those of the elite or the politicians. They're from the likes of us. And I come from a family where an uncle, I never met him. He died in the Second World War. And we've had several political leaders in Britain whose families, for one reason or another, have not actually seen frontline service. That was the case of Gordon Brown's father, who went into the clergy. That was the same with Theresa May's family. Father went into the clergy. And these people are quite happy to give away British sovereignty, but they don't necessarily have a family history of having sweated blood to retain that sovereignty. And David Cameron, his father, well, he was too young to serve at the time of the Second World War, but he had a disability, so he couldn't have served anyway. But the point is, if you have experience of war, then it gives you a different take on things. You see how when Smedley Butler says that the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives, you actually really have a sense of what that loss of lives represents. And of course, we only need to refer to famous British war poets, such as, the First World War poet, Wilfred Owen, who died at the age of 25. He wrote in the preface to a collection of his poems that all the poet can do today is to warn. He said he wrote his poems as a warning to future generations. That's us. And we have a duty, I think, to listen to Smedley Butler, to Wilfred Owen, who says in one of his poems, if you knew about the horrors of war, I won't spell it out because it's so grim in his poems, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. You would not say it's wonderful to give your life up for the country. The cleverer thing, actually, is to find alternative solutions. That is the clever thing. And Gandhi said that it's the coward who opts for war. So we were talking about interests in war. And we saw how Smedley Butler has talked about the profits in dollars and the losses in lives, the people's lives. And George Orwell, just 2 years after Smedley Butler, in 1937, in a book review, wrote, quotes, war against a foreign country only happens when the moneyed classes think they are going to profit from it. And Roberts has already hinted at that motive. And more recently, from George Orwell, we have the words of Dr. Rima Lebo, psychiatrist over in the United States, whose mission it is to collapse the United Nations. Because she says that for as long as we have the United Nations, and there's no mention of peace, she says, in any of their declarations, for as long as we have the United Nations, there will always be war. And on day one of Obama's term of office, he actually passed over the US military to the United Nations. And this is what she said in an interview she did recently with me. She said, no war is made that the bankers do not make. She said, the bankers run the war system and decide where there will be war and what profits they will make. And she goes on to illustrate that with the history of the US Revolutionary War, which she said was funded by the same people on both sides, both the US revolutionaries and the British side, were financed, she said, by the same bankers who, she went on to say, are the people behind the United Nations. Now, if we turn to the Ukraine-Russia situation, and of course leave aside the bankers for a second, who, for all we know, are lurking there close by, what are the specific interests in Ukraine and Russia? Well, remarkably, really, a US Senator, Lindsey Graham, has actually hinted at what is at play. And he has said that it's 10 to 12 trillion dollars. Just take that in. 10 to 12 trillion dollars in resources in the Ukraine. An extraordinary sum. So if we break that down, what do we have there in Ukraine? Well, and a lot of these resources are concentrated in the east of the country. We have the second largest coal reserve in the east of Ukraine, second largest coal reserve, and the sixth largest in the world reserves of iron ore. And those two combined, the coal and the iron ore, of course, are major constituents of steel production. And then that's not where it ends. Gas and oil. Have we been told that the second largest natural gas deposits in Europe lie in the east of Ukraine? That's in the Dnipro-Donetsk region in the east of Ukraine. And then there are extraordinary minerals. There are, what have we got? We've got the largest manganese ore deposits in the whole of Europe, the largest uranium deposits, the largest titanium deposits, and also rare earth resources, including cerium, hope I pronounced these right, yttrium, lanthanum, and neodymium, all alloys used in the modern world, in the computer industry, rechargeable batteries, cell phones, and so much more. And so there's a ton of money at stake here. And are we being told this? This is perhaps just another resources war. We've been here before, have we not? And so, yes, we need to be very attentive when we see these major political parties in Britain dedicating such large expenditure to the cause of defense, or should we say war, because language is very often inverted.
You make some excellent points, and we look at that. I always say history repeats itself because we don't learn the lessons from history.
Critically analyzing global affairs, the Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.